Apple is celebrating its 50th anniversary this month, and to celebrate and to kick off Tom's Guide's relaunch, we wanted to bring in two very special guests, in Joz and John Ternus, to talk about Apple's past, present, and maybe future in terms of some of their products. So let's start with, and I did say maybe. I did say maybe, right? So let's start with one phrase that comes to mind, just because it's coming up in a lot of places, is think different, right? So if there's one product over the last 50 years, maybe something that you worked on in particular, what product would that be? And then I had a follow-up on the MacBook Neo, but like for both of you, what is the product that embodies that think different mentality?
Well, all right, again, you know me, Mark, Mac is what brought me here. iPod changed the trajectory of the company, and iPhone changed the world. So I'm gonna have to give you three products.
Yeah, my answer is even worse because it's look, everything we do, even if you know our customers and users don't necessarily see it, everything we do has some new ideas in it, has new materials, new electrical design, silicon design, you know, any of those things. And to me, like, creativity and invention is fundamentally an act of thinking different, right? And so we feel like we're doing it all the time because we're always trying to push and make the products better. So I can't point to one product because I feel like it's in all of the products.
Okay, that's a good non-answer. So just getting to the MacBook Neo itself, I think you could make the case, you know, that it is a full circle moment for the brand. You know, so what would you sort of trace back to those early days in the garage, and like, how does it potentially bring the Mac itself full circle after these 50 years?
Well, for me, maybe I'll start. I joined in '86, right? So I joined after the garage. Apple had just about 10 years old. And then Apple went off the rails for a little bit, right? So I like to tell people that even though I started in '86, what happened before '97 really kind of doesn't count for me. So I'll start at '97, which is, you know, we were a company almost out of business, right? Literally. And Steve came back, and Think Different was more than just a marketing slogan, right? He had to explain to the world, why did Apple need to exist? We were 3% market share, struggling to stay in business. Windows PCs dominated. And by the way, he had explained to us Apple employees, why did we need to be here? Why did we need to exist? And the reality was that the PC industry was not exactly innovative in those days, right? It was all a matter of how do you cut a nickel here, a quarter here, a dollar here, in order to make the cheapest beige box you could, because that's what they were all competing against. And Steve wanted the world to know that Apple, and us to know, Apple needed to exist because somebody had to have the courage to think different. Someone had to have the courage to do different things. And Mark, I mean, how prophetic that was in 1997, and to see what that thinking turned into, obviously starting originally with the iMac, the Bondi Blue iMac that shattered what people thought of as far as PCs were going. iPod and iTunes, which revolutionized the music industry. iPhone and the App Store, which changed the world, changed all of our daily lives. iPad, you know, magical sheet of glass that redefined a category. You know, Apple Watch, our daily companion that, you know, for your fitness, your health, keeping you connected at just a glance. AirPods changed the way that people listen to music and cut the cords, you know, from a wireless device. That why should you have a cord and a magical pairing? And of course, you know, Apple Vision Pro, which reached into the future to show us how the digital world and the physical world could be combined, and incredible services, you know, Apple Pay and you know, iCloud and Apple TV, you know, and then leading all the way to what you said, you know, I think the MacBook Neo is a great embodiment of that because it completely thought different, right? When John and his team as to how do you do a lower priced but incredibly high value laptop. And so it's perfectly in keeping with, again, this think different idea of this company that was almost out of business. So to me, that's what it means to me.
Yeah, and I think maybe another one that from our past is this idea that Steve talked about as the Mac being the bicycle for the mind, right?
Yeah,
and you know, from the very beginning, the vision was let's make personal computing accessible to as many people as possible, and that was the mission of the MacBook Neo, right? And I think probably, you know, I wasn't here back then, but very much back in the very beginning, you had a team of people who were so excited to make this happen and to bring the Mac experience to so many more people. And that was the kind of driving goal every single day for the MacBook Neo team. And I think they did an amazing job at it.
Yeah, well, John's being very humble. He's a big part of that.
But what's unique about it is that, like, traditionally Apple has been known for making premium products. Like in this particular case, you were targeting a particular price point, but also not willing to compromise in terms of like the overall quality of it. It was a different sort of endeavor. Can you maybe just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, as I'm sure you know well, like we never want to ship junk, right? We want to ship great products that have that Apple experience, have that Apple quality. And to do that with the Neo required building something completely new from the ground up, right? Leveraging both the technologies we've been developing, like Apple Silicon, but also kind of the expertise that we've developed over many, many years of building Macs and building phones and building iPads and all of these things. And so there's so much new in the MacBook Neo, right? We have a completely new trackpad design that is, I think, still better than any PC out there, but it's like, it's absolutely amazing and it's completely brand new. We had to rethink how we made the enclosure, how it all came together. And by doing that and being very focused at it from the beginning, we were able to create something that I think the feedback has been amazing, which is people can't believe how, what a high quality the product still holds. The bar, we didn't lower the bar, right? We still made an amazing high quality Mac at this incredible price point.
Yeah, I think what you've done is actually make the competition start to scramble.
I've read that.
So when you make a product like this, you do have to make some trade-offs, right? So like there isn't a backlit keyboard, for example, or maybe you're using USB 3 and 2 as opposed to Thunderbolt. So how do you decide what the right trade-offs are to make, especially for the target audience?
Yeah, I think from the very beginning, the goal when we started was what makes a Mac, right? What are the essential components of a Mac? And it's a great display, and it's a great keyboard and trackpad, and incredible battery life, and let's focus on those things. The beauty is we have MacBook Air, we have MacBook Pro. So if a customer needs more, if they need the ultimate performance, there's an amazing MacBook Pro that we just launched, right? They can go to the MacBook Air and get more battery life and other things. So we didn't feel like we had to make compromises that we didn't like. We were able to build something that was truly the essence of a Mac. And if people want more, we have that as well.
Well, and the quality of build and the quality of design and construction, you pick up the MacBook Neo and right away you feel the quality, right? You feel how amazing this product is. And Mark, the products in this space that it's competing against. They're plastic, they're literally, you can flex them. They're so cheap because what have they done? They've just tried to, again, cut a nickel, cut a quarter, cut a dollar out of everything to try to make it cheaper. And as a result, they made it cheap, right? Which is very different than making it a lower price and a high value, which was the approach we were taking.
Yeah, I would say the display in particular definitely stands out in terms of the quality, the build quality itself, and the fact that there's no bloatware.
Yep. No,
yeah, because that's right. A Mac. I failed to mention that point. What makes a Mac? Mac OS makes a Mac, right? They get all of those things together, and the Mac OS experience on MacBook Neo is just as great as the Mac OS experience on a MacBook Air or MacBook Pro, right? It is a true Mac.
But why? But one thing that comes to mind though is like, why Neo? A lot of people were saying, okay, so maybe we're going to get an SE because that usually connotes value across the different lines. So, but you went in a different direction with this, with an entirely new name. So why Neo?
Yeah, I mean, look, you could even make an argument. Should you just call it MacBook? That's what some people were expecting. We were working on this, and first of all, to do that would have left it without an identity. So we did want to give it an identity, and we wanted something short and snappy, something that fit in with Air and Pro, but we also wanted something to convey its newness. And Neo literally means new, right, or reinvention. And as we talked about, this is the reinvention, of a laptop, a low price, high value laptop. So to us, Neo was the perfect name for it. And it's really nice because a lot of times names take a little while for people to get used to. This one, like right away, people are like, oh, I like it, you know? So we're very happy with that.
Cool. So what about, now that this product is out there, one of the comments that we got on our first round of videos, so it's just an iPad with a keyboard, which I thought completely missed the point.
It's too early in the morning for that, Mark.
At the same time, iPad OS is becoming more Mac-like with some of the changes that you've made in terms of multitasking and how you open and close apps and that sort of thing. The lines are starting to blur, but in your mind, are they still very much distinct, or are the lines blurring somewhat? Like, where do you guys stand on that?
Yeah,
I mean, they're different products, right? We love the iPad, we love the Mac, we love the iPhone, we love all of our products. But I think what we always do is we're always focused on how do we make a given product better? What are we doing next? What are we doing after that? We're always pushing, and we never think about like, well, what impact if we did something here would it have on a product over here? Like, we're going to make the best iPad we can possibly make. We're going to make the best Mac we can possibly make, and some customers are going to choose one, some customers are going to choose the other. A lot of customers actually like to have both, and that's great too. So yeah, we never think about, there's never been this idea of mashing these two things together. No. There's this narrative outside that there is, but that's never been the case.
Yeah, I mean, and right from the very beginning, there was obviously some overlap. I mean, that was the case when we introduced it. But like John said, we want to make our Macs the best personal computer we can be. We want to make the iPad this magical sheet of glass that makes it the best that it can be. And think about you. I'm not going to speak for you. I'm going to guess you might have both. So many of our customers do. Well, think about that. So you're even choosing that you're not converging them. It's not one, right? You're choosing, no, sometimes the iPad's better for this and the Mac's better for this. And it's good to have them both. And we love that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So I guess if the MacBook Pro had a touch display, that does not mean, and I'm not saying that you're working on that, but if it did have one, that doesn't mean that you're going back on your word that the product lines are distinct, because you would just be making one thing better for that target audience. Is that fair to say?
Well, fortunately, we don't have that product, so I don't even know how I would answer that, Mark.
So what about, you brought up earlier about how Vision Pro was a sneak peek at the future. And I just wanted to get your guys' opinion on the state of spatial computing overall, just because I think a lot of people were talking about smart glasses as being the next wave of computing. Obviously you have Meta out there, Gemini glasses are coming, et cetera. You already have a spatial computing product out there, and I'm sure Vision OS wasn't created for just one device. You've already had a follow-up, for example. So what do you think of that? Not talking about your future product plans, but what do you guys think about that product category in general?
Look, I think we're still very much in the early innings of spatial computing. We are super excited about it. I mean, the Vision Pro is an extraordinary product. As Jaws said, it's like we reached into the future and pulled it into the present. And it's continuing to, people are continuing to find exciting new use cases for it. There's a lot of compelling stuff in enterprise, in medicine and other things, and that's going to continue to grow. It's fun. We're at the beginning of the journey.
Yeah. Joss, how about for you? What do you think of the
look,
product category itself?
There's some inevitability to combining digital and physical world. That's what spatial computing was all about. And as John just said, and as we've said, right, we're reaching to the future with a product called the Vision Pro. Can't give you a timeline for, when spatial becomes, anything else, but, it's an inevitability, right, of digital and physical worlds coming together.
Yeah, I'll give you guys a quick example. So I think when you launched widgets, the widgets that you could sort of pin into your room, one of the first things that I did is I put up a picture that I just really liked. So just imagine walking into your kitchen each day and you decide what you want to see, especially if it's gloomy out, for example.
Yeah, I mean, there's countless examples, right, of where a digital element can augment the physical world and really, quite honestly, vice versa.
And some amazing experiences. Yeah. The work we've been doing with the NBA, with the streaming the games onto Vision Pro and in immersive video is just mind-blowing. It's a completely different experience to be like, wow, I'm actually at this game, and people have been super excited about that. Yeah. So again, we keep pushing and finding these new experiences and opportunities, and yeah, I'm excited for the future of it.
Cool. Just along those lines, in terms of like straddling like the present and future, obviously AI is a big part of what you guys have been doing for a while. Even before it was called AI popularly, it was machine learning, right? So that's sort of been in your DNA for a bit now.
We originally called it proactive, if you remember, Mark. We didn't even use machine learning or AI. We talked about how your devices could be proactive because they were learning these things. That was not my biggest marketing genius moves, but we had a name.
So, but at the same time, I feel like AI is at a crossroads at the moment. I feel like you have just as many people who are passionate about AI and how it helps them on a daily basis, especially in terms of productivity. But then you also have a lot of people who are skeptical or maybe even afraid of what happens if it goes rogue and that sort of thing. So now that we're like at least like a few years into like at least ChatGPT era and beyond, has your thinking changed about AI and what people want out of it when it comes to your own products?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure I'd use crossroads, right? I would use early innings. I mean, this is still very early days in what is going on with intelligence. And, you know, you've heard us give some of our thinking on it, right? We want to use intelligence, meet the customers where they are to make our products and our features better. And by the way, we've been doing that with intelligence for many years, right? And Gen AI allows us an opportunity to do that even more, you know, so I'm excited about that. But boy, this is not a sprint. This is a marathon, right? We're going to be doing stuff with intelligence for decades, not for months or years.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we never think about shipping a technology. We always think about how can we leverage technology to ship amazing products and features and experiences for our users. And so that's how we think about AI is you know, and you've already seen plenty of it like happening in different places, live translation on AirPods and other things. It's like we're taking the technology and leveraging it into really meaningful experiences, and that's how we think about approaching it.
Yeah, I feel like maybe what I meant by crossroads is like I feel like people are excited by the technologies, but they might not be quite at the point where they're using AI as the decision factor for buying a product or maybe not buying it. But we may get to a point where something is so exciting as a feature in terms of making your life better that it does become a tipping point. Do you guys see that on the horizon, or do you feel like because we're in early innings, we're not quite there yet?
Well, I like what JT said, because it is about these experiences, not about the technology itself, right? And again, we see it as a way to make our products and our features better. I love it when those things are happening and somebody doesn't even necessarily know that it's AI, right? It's just better. And that's what I think the world expects from us, right? We make things personal. We bring humanity to things. You know, we make it so that you don't have to be, you know, a chatbot expert, you know, in order to get the most out of that technology. We want the technology to come to you, right? And just make those experiences that you live through every day better, whether you know you're using AI or not.
Yeah, an example of that might be, and I know it's not like technically AI, but if I'm getting to the bus stop in the morning, if I swipe down, the first thing that I see is the transit app. Like it knows where I am, it knows what the time of day is.
That's exactly right. It knows your habits. It knows. I love that. I mean, that's a great example. That was one of the quote unquote proactives, right, that we introduced maybe, gosh, more than 10 years ago, which was the idea that it had a pretty good idea what app you needed to use next. It wasn't just random, right? You pulled down, as you said, from the screen, and it took a bunch of things that it knew about what was going on right now, what your habits were, and had a pretty good shot of offering you up the right app.
And as Siri gets smarter, like some people are saying, okay, it could be the quote unquote death of apps because it can control apps for you and get things done. I'm assuming that you assume that there'll be more of a symbiosis going forward as opposed to one winning out over the other. Like, what do you guys think about that?
Well, the App Store is alive and well. I can tell you that. We are getting lots of great submissions and lots of great apps, and intelligence is certainly part of those apps. So, you know, I think the rumors of its death may have been greatly exaggerated.
And yeah, so I guess, John, from your perspective, as you look at like sort of like the hardware landscape right now, obviously Neo is like the latest and greatest that you've done, but like, do you feel like there's anything that you could learn from that as you like move forward? Because there's always seems to be like a trickle down effect, not even like in a product line, but across product lines.
Yeah, I mean, we are always kind of building upon what we've done in the past. You can see our whole product lines have been that way, right? I mean, the iPhone was born out of what we learned on the Mac and the iPod, right? The iPad was clearly like built out of what we learned on the phone. But also in terms of how we build our products, we're doing that all the time. And so you're right, you see things pop up in different places as we develop, a new technology, or we start working with a new material or things like that. And and then Neo, there's been so much good new stuff. It's certainly going to influence how we look at other products and how we can take kind of core technologies and pieces to make them better as well.
Great. So just to wrap up, I would just say, love to get your thoughts on what the 50th anniversary means to you, and maybe share a very quick anecdote of your favorite story being at Apple during that time.
Go first? Well, look, again, I've been here for 40 of the 50, which is kind of nuts. So I have more stories than you have time, Mark. But if you ever want to grab a beer or a glass of wine, I'll make you cry, Uncle, at some point. I have so much, but I obviously during this very rare time for us to be reflective, because as we talked about, we're way more forward-looking than we are backward-looking. But this is kind of a special week and a special little lead up to this, so we are reflective. And I can't help but think of when Steve returned to the company. And our very first meeting with Steve, because here again, we were struggling to say the least at that point. And we had the meeting with them, leaders in product marketing and leaders in engineering, our first meeting with them. And I was working for Phil at the time, Phil Schiller, and we weren't quite sure how to start the meeting. And Phil says, hey, do you want us to show you our product roadmaps, which are our plans for the product for the next couple of years? And Steve stops and he says, no, let's talk about where we're going. Because if we don't know where we're going, no map's going to get us there. And we started to retrench our thinking, and him reminding us that great companies fail because they forget about creating great products. And that we were going to put the product back at the focus of everything that we do, right? And with this naive belief that if you create great products, there'll be a market for that. And again, first of all, our heads were like, wow, we had never had a CEO who was telling us that we were going to talk about where we're going and how the products were going to be getting us there, and where we, how we were going to transform this business. And, talk about having us at hello. And then to see, as I went through earlier, to see all the different places that thinking took us, and where we are today is, it's been an incredible journey. I feel incredibly blessed to have spent the last 40 years of my life here. And what's more exciting is all the great stuff we have in front of us, because we are working on some pretty cool stuff, Mark. But I think that's what you wanted to hear from us, but we're not telling you about that.
Never.
Well, I did like the inevitable part. I mean, it tells me something. So John, how about for you? How would you sum up the 50-year anniversary, and then just your favorite moment from your time at Apple?
I think it's been really fun. Again, we talked about this sort of odd sense of, okay, we're going to spend a little time looking back. Not a lot, because we've got lots to do. But to me, there's this recognition and hearing a lot of the old stories and stuff like that we really today, the team here at Apple stands on the shoulders of giants, right? I mean, and as I said before, so much, everything we do is built on what came before, what we've done before. And that makes me so excited for the future, because I see where we are now, and I just know things are going to keep getting better and better. I think one of my favorite stories, and it actually was a you've probably heard it before. It was about Steve when he was moving a piece of furniture, a chest of drawers, and pulled it away from the wall and looked at the back and was just reflecting on that the carpenter who had made it beautiful. It finished the back as beautifully as the rest of it, even though nobody was going to see it, right? And I think about that all the time, because I think that perfectly exemplifies what we do here, right? And we've been talking about the MacBook Neo. I mean, here is our most affordable Mac we've ever made, and it's absolutely beautiful. And if you open it up and look inside, it's just as beautiful, right? And that's true on an iPhone Pro Max or a MacBook Pro or an iPad Pro, but it's also true on a MacBook Neo. That's what we do. And so it's just been really good to kind of think about that and reflect on that, because that is probably the best kind of clue as to where we're going in the future. Is we're going to keep pushing in that same way.
Yeah, I love that.
So that's why the bottom of the MacBook Neo has the color matching feet.
It's all a part of it. It's
Details.
just every
Details.
details exactly.
All right, cool. Well, thank you so much to both of you, Joz and John Ternus, for your time today.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
And for you out there, if you really liked what you saw today and want to see more interviews from us, make sure you like and subscribe. For Tom's Guide, this is Mark Spoonhour.